All right, let's talk about Diogenes, the ancient philosopher who championed, well, doing nothing. And believe it or not, his ideas from thousands of years ago might be exactly what we need right now.
Okay, let me ask you something. Do you ever feel that little twinge of guilt, when you're just relaxing? That nagging voice in your head that says you should be doing something productive, that you're falling behind?
Yeah, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. It feels like our whole world treats busyness like a virtue, right? Like it's a badge of honor. And idleness, that's seen as some kind of moral failing. It's like our value is completely tied to our output.
But what if that's all just wrong? I want you to imagine something. Let's travel back in time, like 2,400 years ago, and there we find this incredible philosopher who made the case that true freedom isn't found in doing more, but in doing almost nothing at all.
And that brings us to this guy, a real rebel in a barrel. We're talking about ancient Athens here, and you've got to understand, this was a society that, kind of like ours, was all about constant activity. Civic duty, being involved, that was everything.
I mean, the difference between Diogenes and everyone else, it's just wild. On one hand, you've got the ideal Athenian citizen, right? He's involved in politics, serves in the military, he's building wealth. And then there's Diogenes. This guy was homeless, jobless, owned literally nothing, and, get this, lived in a giant clay jar. In a culture where if you weren't involved in public life, you were basically considered useless, Diogenes was a total walking scandal.
And he wasn't quiet about it either. The man was a master of what you might call philosophical street theater. There's this legendary story. The famous philosopher Plato defines a human as a featherless biped. So what does Diogenes do? He finds a chicken, plucks all its feathers off, storms into Plato's school, and yells, "Behold, I've brought you a man." It's hilarious, right? But it was also a brilliant and pretty shocking way to make a point, that philosophy was getting way too disconnected from reality.
So stunts like that, they really get to the heart of his whole philosophy, what we could call the wisdom of idleness. Now, to everyone else in Athens, Diogenes probably just looked lazy, or, completely crazy. But his inactivity wasn't about being lazy. No, it was a deliberate philosophical experiment. He wanted to figure out what a person actually needs to live a good life once you strip everything else away.
And the core idea here has a name, autarky. It basically means radical self-sufficiency. For Diogenes, real freedom wasn't about getting more stuff or more power. It was about needing less. Think about it. The less you need from the world, less stuff, less praise from other people, less status, the freer you are. You're free from all the stress and anxiety that comes with chasing after all that.
He kind of boiled it down to a simple 3-step path to freedom. Step 1, own less. That means fewer things to worry about. Step 2, want less. That means fewer things to be anxious about. And the result of those two, step 3, you fear less. There's that great story about him seeing a little kid drinking water from his cupped hands, and Diogenes just threw away his own cup. He realized he could simplify his life even more. Incredible.
And this whole idea of self-sufficiency leads to something even bigger, even more radical. When people would ask him where he was from, he wouldn't say Athens or the town he was born in. He'd say, "I am a citizen of the world." Now we hear that today and think, oh, that's nice. But back then, that was absolutely shocking. Your entire identity, your whole sense of worth, was tied to your city. For him to say that, he was basically rejecting the very foundation of their society.
So, you'd think an idea this radical, from a guy living in a jar, would just kind of fade away, right? But no, Diogenes' philosophy didn't die with him, not even close. In fact, his supposedly crazy ideas went on to have a huge, lasting impact on, well, all of Western thought.
You can see his fingerprints everywhere. The founder of Stoicism, a guy named Zeno, he took a lot of Diogenes' core ideas, like living according to nature and mastering your desires, and built a whole new philosophy on them. Much later, the famous Stoic Epictetus would write about Diogenes with total admiration for his self-mastery. And you can even see echoes of his ideas in early Christian monks who chose to live in poverty. His life basically became the blueprint for self-control and real independence.
Okay, so that brings us right back to today. Let's take that ancient mirror that Diogenes held up and turn it on ourselves, because there's a new kind of cynic out there, a new rebellion happening in our very own digital world.
See, our modern world has its own pressure cooker, and we call it the cult of productivity. Technology has completely erased the line between work and home life. Our attention? That's the new gold, and it's being bought and sold every second. Even our free time has to be optimized with apps and schedules. It's this nonstop pressure that the philosopher Byung-Chul Han perfectly named the burnout society.
And when you put it side by side, the parallels are just uncanny. Back then, the pressure was constant civic duty. Today, it's hustle culture and being connected 24/7. The method of resistance? Diogenes had his shameless idleness. Today, you see things like the Tongpang or lying flat movement in China, or people embracing digital minimalism. And the goal? It's exactly the same. What he called autarky or self-sufficiency, we'd probably call autonomy and mental peace.
So, where does this leave us? What's the big takeaway here? It's about finding the freedom in doing less. Look, Diogenes wasn't telling everyone to go find a barrel to live in. His message wasn't quit society. It was choose your relationship with society. That's a huge difference.
Really, what Diogenes gives us is a powerful tool. He's a prompt for us to just stop for a second and ask ourselves, hey, all these things I do every day, all these duties and habits, which ones actually make me happy? And which ones am I just doing because I feel like I'm supposed to?
And here's the final kind of mind-blowing twist. The idleness he was talking about, it's not lazy, not at all. To intentionally choose to do less, to fight that constant urge to be busy, that takes an incredible amount of discipline. In a world that is literally screaming for every second of your attention, saying no is a powerful, active, and courageous act. It's as hard as any job out there.
So I'm just going to leave you with this one question to chew on. Think about your own life right now. What is just one duty, one little habit, something you feel like you have to do that you could just let go of? What's one thing you could abandon to get back a little piece of your time and a little piece of your freedom?